ever taken to your freshly painted brand new reproduction guard that you've got hundreds of dollars in and drilled a hole in it? Bit traumatic. Anyway, I'm Chris. This is Flat Tank Journey. Welcome back to the shed. I've been doing a little bit, not a scintillating amount, but a little bit. I am cracking on and having a look at this front brake, and I've got the front brake rod with me, and I've got the piece that screws into the fork leg to actuate it. I don't think you're going to see that in this video, but I'm cracking on and doing that. And in the meantime, I've got another thing to show you. It took me a long time, but it wasn't a big job. I want to know what you think of it because it's a bit of a bodge. You have a look at that, and then we'll wind up and see how we're going. I'm sitting here in my bolt and nut collection. So it's cycle thread, pretty standard fine, metric and BA, more metric, and then an assortment of what I generically call Whitworth. But there's a bit of UNC and UNF. So I do identify this. This is the fitting off the crankcase of the wedge tank, because I need to do something about making a plug to go into the case to hold the primary chain case that I can put an overflow or a blow-off fitting in. Probably not blow-off, an overflow pipe in. So after some faffing about, because I assumed it would be cycle thread, it isn't. It's Whitworth. So you never throw anything away. You keep all your bits and pieces, and this is a stud of an engine, and it's got BSF on one end and Whitworth on the other. I tried dies and taps and all sorts of things. It is 3/8 Whitworth. That's what it is. I actually reckon that's wrong, and I reckon on my S27 it's something else. I reckon it's BSF because I had to rethread it. I won't be surprised if I don't look closely and see that somebody's helicoiled this and made it Whitworth for convenience. Anyway, 3/8 Whitworth is what that is, and I suppose that makes it easy. I've got the taps, I've got the dies, and I can crack on and do something about it. I had to find a bit of hex bar to see what I can do about making that. Wish me luck. I'm going to mark a bit of this off and allow myself a little bit of meat to play with and see if we can get something to go. I'll cut this, eh? Gutless things, I reckon. I don't have a good go with battery operated tools. Not a huge fan of them. Don't reckon they have a lot of torque. Rightio, here's my two parts. Up to the lathe, do something about it. I'm just about to face this off to get a flat end and establish some sort of point to work from. Good result. Now I need to just establish approximately half an inch of thread onto that. So of course it's 3/8, so I'm going to shoot for about 10 mil and see if I can get 10 mil at half an inch. I might even go 15 millimeters and then that leaves me a little bit to cut off. And I don't mind that. It just gives me a little bit of play in case I make an error. And I regularly do that. Now, I'm not going to ask you to watch all that. All I'm doing is turning that down to a nominal size of about 10 mil. Not rocket science, eh? $9.97, $9.98, about right. Just overshot the 10 mil, but 3/8 is just under 10 mil anyway. So that's not too bad. Now, I just want to cut a relief into the back of where the thread will be, because then the thread rolls over and it allows your fitting to do up tightly. If you don't, the thread doesn't go all the way to the bottom, and then you don't appear to get full depth of it up against the chain case. Or at least that's what I think. Gonna cut a little relief. I haven't cut that real deep. I think I'll take a bit more out of it. You can see the advantage of the quick change tool poster. I forget what they're called, these multi-fix tool posts. You just keep changing them and turning them. Fantastic. Now, for some reason I'd messed up the centre height of that one. The centre heights are held stable, and all I was trying to do was just get a chamfer on the end so that it would let the thread start easier. Let me look into cutting a thread in that. Now, this is a bit janky, I suppose, but I've got the mother of all tap wrenches in the lathe. I'm not going to turn the lathe on, so don't panic. The tailstock is holding it straight and square, and I just use the key of the chuck to turn it. At the same time, I'm turning the handle on the tailstock, trying to get a straight start. Now, why am I using something so big? Because for some reason, all the grub screws are gone out of my smaller tap wrenches, which is incredibly frustrating. And I don't remember taking them out. Anyway, this cuts beautifully. It's a good quality. I think it's the Rigid brand handle. And I think it's a Rigid brand die. And this won't take long. I'll throw a bit more lubricant on that. I don't really want to back it out just at the minute. I probably should. But I think we're going to be talking about, 7 or 8 turns in total. So again, I'm just applying gentle pressure with the tailstock. It's probably not even needed at this point. The die is pulling itself on. And I've reached the end of the travel on my tailstock. Because I've got an awful lot happening here at the minute with stuff. So I'm just about there. Another perhaps quarter of a turn or half. And you can feel it when it goes over that relief that I talked about cutting. Now I warn you, don't be tempted to turn the lathe on. Just don't. I did years and years and years and years ago, trying to cut a long thread, and it didn't end well. It's just turning too quickly. Maybe you're more experienced than me. Maybe you do a better job than me. That's really cool. It's not what I do. There we go. Actually, it's P&N, the die, and that's a well-known Australian brand made in Australia. Sadly, not anymore, but nonetheless, that is really nice. I've got a little bit of emery cloth. I'm just going to run that across the top of that, take all the sharpness off it, and then we'll be done. Now I can assure you those things are sharp and they will cut you. Let's have a look. Here we go. That one's a little bit longer than the other, but they fit into one another. Helps if I show you. And that's how I work out they're all right. Let's have a look at it on the bike, eh? There we go. We're looking in at the engine case. Here's the piece I've just made. Yeah, look at that. And that snugs up really well. And that's what cutting that relief out of the back of the thread is all about. Now I must remember to just shorten that in the future because that screws into the case and I don't want a problem inside the case. Nonetheless, I'm not unhappy with that. I've come this far and that's okay. I don't have a plan for this. I'm doing this as I go. I'm doing this as I think I'm moving in the right direction. I do need to be cognizant of just how long it is so that the chain case, the primary chain cover, sits in the right place. So I think that's the next challenge, is to get that to length. Now I'm guessing it's about 1 inch and 5/16. Yeah, if I'm doing my imperial conversion correctly. Yeah. 1 inch and 5/16, so just a little bit less than 1 1/4 inches, which in real measurements, because I was born in the late 60s, is just over 30. I'll use a washer, butt that up against it. Just short of 31 millimeters. So that's what I've got to shoot for. I got to get that down to there and then think about a thread on that end, which shouldn't be too bad. Actually, probably should have drilled the hole out to start with. Maybe that was awkward. Might have made a mistake. Nothing worse than remounting a piece and trying to drill a hole. Right, 31 millimeters is the measurement, or just under, and I can do that. Leaving the texture. Yep, we should be good. Again, I think if I'm 0.5 millimeter out, it's not going to make that much difference in this particular part. 0.5 mil, neither here nor there. Let me go, set up, and I'll machine this. I don't think I'll bore you with this. I'm going to cut this down to, this has a thread size of 5/16 on the other end, and it looks like it's cycle thread, and it's 5/16 and it's about, well, just over 5/16 long. Let me do that. That's a bit boring. You don't need to see that. And then we'll come back, eh? All right, things have progressed well. I've got the fitting, bring it in and show you. 2 ends, Whitworth this end, cycle thread the other. And that fits. And it's more or less the same. I've even allowed for a washer. This had a washer because the end of it was small, the original. This is not going to have a washer because the other side of it's left wide. Now I have made an error. I didn't put a hole down the centre of this while I was machining this thread. And I really should have. That was the time to do it. I have got a piece of copper pipe somewhere. So now the concept is to drill a hole into the side of this and put this copper pipe in. This is 5/16-ish on the outside. I suppose I could be more accurate than that. 5/16. Well, it's not quite round. 792 in some places, up to 8. I'm going to shoot for an 8mm hole and try and sweat this in. Now, I have thought about it a bit, and I think I'm putting it in the bottom. Not that it really matters. So I've screwed it in a couple of times because when it's screwed in, I want the fitting to be in the right place. So I'm going to put it in there and it's going to go down there. I probably need some sort of compression fitting that I can take off the pipe so that this can be screwed in, or that's what I think, that a short piece into this fitting with a compression elbow that drops straight down. I don't really know. I'm going to drill the length hole and the depth hole in it lengthways and the hole in the side of it while I think about it. So I've made a bit of progress and I hope this isn't glaring off the window too badly. I have the hole down the centre and I have a hole in the side. Now I've kept it close to the crankcase because I think that's where it belongs. Let me get the copper pipe, and it does fit. And I expected it to, because I think 8mm is just ever so slightly too big. But the pipe's not completely round and it's got tight spots. So I can see the copper pipe inside the tube. I probably need to cut a little concave in the end, and perhaps I can use a Dremel for that. And then I need to think about cleaning it all up and silver soldering it in. That'll be a pain in the bum because I'm not super good at that, and I don't want to fill the pipe with solder so that you end up with nothing. It might be time to break and come back another day after I've looked into plumbing fittings and right angles to see if I've got anything and that I can use as a compression fitting or a silver solder fitting and join it together so that I don't end up with this long piece that I can't thread in because I can't wind it round. Hope that makes sense. Come back to the bike to explain what I mean about threaded in. So if I leave any length hardly at all, it won't be able to screw in all the way. So it has to screw in. Actually, that was the hole. It has to screw in with the tubing on it. So I need to make it that way. I suppose I could just leave a stub and use fuel hose off a modern bike and then could cable tie it in. That could be a solution too. I'm not against that. I suppose in my mind I had a long copper fitting in mind, but that might not be the best solution. I'm going to have to think about it. Frustrating afternoon. In the end, I've gone for the simplest option, the path of least resistance to me. Now, I may live to regret it, I may not. I tried with no luck to silver solder that tube in. I used Baker's soldering fluid, I cleaned it, I hydrochloric acided it, and I could not get the silver solder to stick to the steel. I don't know why, and in the end I don't care. It's not an inlet. It doesn't run fuel. It doesn't run anything except it's a spit out pipe. It spits out oil that's overflowed. Overthinking it. I don't care. In the end, I used silicon. Will it hold? Well, the oil will cause it to deteriorate. This is a low mile, not going anywhere, old clunker. If the pipe falls off that was an inch of copper, am I really going to care? And in the end, it won't matter. That piece of copper pipe is the longest it can be and still turn freely into the bike. And that seems important, that I can't make something that I can't get off. Then I had some fuel hose, and it is fuel hose. I don't know how they measure it, whether it's considered to be 3/8 because it's 3/8 inside, or it's 5/16 inside, it's something else outside. I don't know how they measure hose and pipe. Too complicated. In the end though, it fits. I've got a short piece and it's actually longer than I need. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to show you how it fits. And I shouldn't be because the silicon's not quite dry. But I want to bring this to a conclusion. So I'm going to run it over the footrest and cable tie it to the footrest bar so it doesn't all flop about. And then it'll spew oil onto the road. Well, not spew it, but, drip or whatever. But only when it's full. And then in reality, I think I should be draining the crankcase and letting fresh oil go in. Or that's how I understand the whole oil scavenging thing. Come and have a closer look. Don't look too bad. Here's what I've ended up with. Here's the copper tube, the standoff. That's where the primary chain case is, and that's the dirty thing on the floor. And then there's the hose. And I'll nip the hose to length. And I've got a clip on that so that I can tighten up the hose in due course. But I just want to let that silicon set for maybe 12 hours and then see what happens. But I think this is going to be a victory. So there we go. There's proof of concept. It more or less works. This is a bit long. The bottom stud, the one I just made, it's a bit long in the thread. That's the nut that came with them. I need to shorten that up a little bit when everything's dried. But the cover screws on and it's going to work. Bit of a relief, eh? Carrying on from where I left off, because it's been a day or so since I was making this little piece, this breather or this blow-off. And that's all good now, or at least I think it is. I really have second thoughts about using a silicon product for that, but I'm going to see how it goes. What's the implications of it going badly? Not a lot. It's a blow-off. It's an overflow. The worst thing that can happen is the silicon product deteriorates and this piece blows off, meaning this pipe and 30 mil of copper. So it'd make a mess. Is it the end of the world? No. Would I rather have done it the other way? Yeah, I would have. But I couldn't, and I want to solve it. In the meantime, I took the footrest bar out, and it was just a piece of hex bar. And, I still think it's one of my better jobs, actually. I'm not unhappy with it. I drilled some holes in it. I'm going to put some split pins in it to hold it into place. Now, I did paint it, and I am completely aware that when I push this back in, I will get paint coming off. So I am prepared to touch it up. And that's just the way of the design that I went with, which may not be the greatest design in the world, but that's what I chose to do. I've got a couple of 3mm split pins that I can slide in, or at least I hope I can. Perfect. And I'm around this side in the dark. I'm back. In true fashion, I started by putting the pin in the easy side, which was this side. And then it's such a tight fit that I should have put it in the other side first. Of course, now I can't see this side. There it is. This is going to take a while. I've got this so snug that it needs tapped through. I'll be back when I've tapped it through. There it goes. Ended up not being as big a saga as I thought. Now, they're really tight, which is good. That is what I wanted. And I will show you in a second. Here's the footrest bar installed. You can see this shiny big split pin in there. I've folded the ends around and cut it off. There is no sideways movement at all. Other side's the same. It's a bit dark. I'll leave that to your imagination. I am gonna get on with this and put that tube on and put the footrest back on. Here we go. Now the footrests look neat and tidy. They're just like they were before, really. The tubing, well, I've got a clip around it and it's got sealant on it and it works as it's intended, I think, but I'm not sure it'll hold together. So I'm not sure that's my best work. The clips, well, they look really good. I'm really happy with that. Black, I think once the primary cover goes on, not going to see any of this. It's going to look really good. That's my little journey for the week. I hope you got something out of it. I'm slowly ticking off the jobs. I've got to have a go at this headstock. That's not right. It's got movement in it. That doesn't work for me. I've got to do oil pipes. I got to do a gasket for the gearbox. I got to do a lot of stuff. I got to get online and buy some cables. I got to get a throttle cable and a clutch cable, a brake cable and a decompressor. I must go through my stuff and see what I've got and what I haven't got. But in the meantime, that's Flat Tank Journey for the week. Hit the subscribe button, comment, hit the like button if you want. Tell your mates, even better. Have a good one. Cheers.